what we are hearing nothing basically about Bahrain anymore. Everything is more or less coming to us about Libya, about Yemen, about ongoing developments in Egypt. But as far as Bahrain is concerned, it's been buried. When it was in the news, there was an attempt to make this into a Sunni-Shia split and to blame Iran, saying that it was Iran's fault and was trying to stir up dissent among Bahrain's Shia population, and that therefore it was necessary to send in Saudi troops. This is a very dangerous game that the U.S. is playing, if that's what they're doing, because I think it's in nobody's interest to have any kind of regional tension between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and it would not surprise me in the least if to find out that the United States and Saudi Arabia are trying to provoke Iran so that they have an excuse to go and destroy its economic and political infrastructure.
Well, in terms of the role of Iran, I mean, aside from any factual evidence coming through, in which the United States recently did not present any, and said that Iran doesn't have a role in general of any of the uprisings, they're talking about interference when, at the same time in Bahrain, you have Saudi soldiers coming through and supporting the Bahraini forces, and of course we see what is unfolded. So, Dr. Dabos, how is that? That seems
and we have to remember.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I was just going to say, I missed some of this because the sound was cut, but we have to remember that last fall the Saudis received an unprecedented $60 billion in military hardware from the United States. It doesn't need that. There's no reason for it. It's probably nothing more than recycled petrodollars, and it sustains a military-industrial complex between the United States and Saudi Arabia that has been present since just after the Second World War. I have a very bad feeling about this. I am sure that the Bahraini uprising is not over, and that the people in Bahrain who were demonstrating, both Sunni and Shia together, against the repressive monarchy would really like to see some kind of reform possible without this turning into a full-scale regional or global war.
Well, let me bring in Dr. Dabus. Dr. Dabus, I mean, we talk about how this has been blown up by Saudi Arabia for quite some time, and the United States in turn supporting them in terms of this interference coming from Iran. But of course, Iran has not only denied any type of interference, Iran is saying, first of all, what does that have to do with the role that you guys are playing, meaning the Bahraini forces backed by Saudi forces, along with the legitimate demands of Bahrainis when it comes to just what they need, which is a lifting of their economic status, and of course the repression that has occurred. So there is a disconnect there in terms of the reasoning by Saudi Arabia and the United States, isn't there?
Well, I think we do have to admit that Iran, as the major Shia power in the region and in the world, does have a responsibility to champion the interests of the Shia population in countries like Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, in Lebanon. And the ties are very close, and to deny this would, I think, not only be not factual, but also wouldn't help the discussion whatsoever, because most people do know it's true, and it's legitimate. I think this is the important point. Whether that means that there is foreign intervention, military or financial that nature, that's something that we don't have any proof of with the case of Saudi Arabia. There is some indication for Bahrain, but again, I would say this is to an extent legitimate. I think what's missing here, and it's interesting that we somehow have a parallel interest between the U.S. and Iran, is that countries like Bahrain and Yemen and Saudi Arabia itself are not doing enough to what we call co-opt the disadvantaged and oppressed minorities. Any good functioning democracy or dictatorship, for that matter, gives significant groups a piece of the action, a piece of the decision-making process that is real. And this is not happening in Bahrain. There's no excuse for the country with that kind of income, national income, to have such an impoverished population, and it's no coincidence that this population is primarily Shia. On the other hand, the link between the Sunnis and the Shia, I think, is largely political in the sense it's related to democracy. So the social issues, it would seem to me, are primarily a Shia issue, whereas the democratic demands unify Shia and Sunni. And here I think Iran has a legitimate right and responsibility to intervene on the international stage, at least.
And of course, when we talk about democracy, that's where the United States should come in. But the United States can't afford to lose his longtime ally, Saudi Arabia, because of one thing, and that's the oil. Isn't that true, Dr. Kabani?
Absolutely, but there is also morality and ethics and human rights, which America and the U.S. claim to be the guardian of these issues. So they shouldn't contradict themselves when we see really massacres and killing of bare-handed civilians. And actually, I'd like to agree with your lady guest in the U.S. when she said that the popular uprising really in Bahrain was non-sectarian, but it is the rulers in the Gulf area who are playing the sectarian issue, which is a very dangerous issue to divide the people and will destabilize the whole area. Because I'm just hearing voices, for example, in the propaganda machines, which they call media, of these Gulf states, saying that if the Shia citizens of Bahrain are not happy with Al Khalifa ruling, they could leave the country and go to Iran. This is fascist and discriminatory remarks, which people who mention that or say that should be really tried in court. Because even stupidly, if we talk about the minority Sunni in Bahrain, that if they are not happy, they should leave and go to with their brother in Saudi Arabia, that still would be a fascist and discriminatory remark. So how dare they say that? And also the Muslim in the West, for example, who have got different religion altogether, would not, they have got the decency not to say if Muslims are not happy in Europe or the United States, they can leave and go back to their countries. Those countries in the West and in the US respect human rights. But I wonder why morality and ethics always end at the borders of this country and does not extend to the Middle East while we are seeing all these atrocities committed under their watch.
Let me address that to Jennifer Lowenstein. That's a good question.
Well, yeah, well, it's a very good question, but I have to disagree on one point, and that is that the United States and other Western countries care about human rights up until their own borders end. We have seen enough trouble just in my home state of Wisconsin this past winter with a regime in power in the state that has done more to destroy civil liberties and civil rights of workers and unions, hardworking people, teachers, firemen, police officers. You know, I think we have to tend to our problems right here at home, as well as be a little bit less hypocritical when we're going overseas and talking to other nations and telling them how to run their countries. I agree with the speaker in Beirut that this was not a sectarian struggle initially. I really don't think it was, and that probably if the Khalifa monarchy wanted to institute a few reforms, it could do so very easily. I don't see what the problem is. What I see are very big national security policy issues on the table with the United States and with Saudi Arabia. And I think it should not be forgotten that the Saudi Shia population is in the east, sits on the oil in Saudi Arabia, and has been fiercely discriminated against by Saudi Arabia, and that this could, in fact, lead to regional instability between Saudi Arabia and Iran. So yes, on the one hand, Iran does have an obligation in a way to speak for the Shia people. On the other hand, it wouldn't have to. If the Shia populations of Saudi Arabia and Bahrain were being treated fairly and with the kind of respect and human dignity that we so often say is part of our legacy.
Okay, we're going to leave it at that. Thank you very much. Associate Director of Middle East Studies Program at the University of Wisconsin, Jennifer Lowenstein, there with her statements. Prior to that, from London, Dr. Ali Al-Kabani, who's a journalist and political analyst. We thank you for your statements. And of course, Dr. Eugene Dabos, who's the chairman of Political Science Department at Notre Dame University in Beirut. We appreciate your statements. And thank you, the viewer, for watching. Send it to questions at newsroom@presstv.ir. From Mika Batarway and the entire team, it's goodbye.